Migration is a topic that often seems to be discussed only in emotional and heated ways. But to really understand the debate here in our country, it helps to look beyond our own perspective. And that is exactly what we will do today. We will take a step back and look at migration from a global and more objective point of view. This sentence summarizes the main idea of everything that follows. Migration is not a modern crisis or an exception. It has always been a constant part of human history, and the challenges we talk about so much in our country are part of a global reality. So let's begin. Let's move away from daily headlines and look at the bigger global picture. To make this less abstract, let's first look at some basic numbers. They help us understand the scale of migration. 304 million. According to UN estimates, this is the number of people currently living outside their country of birth. Of course, that is a very large number. But with large numbers, perspective matters. Here comes the really interesting point. When we compare this number to the total world population, we see that more than 96% of people do not migrate. Most people stay in the country where they were born. So globally speaking, migration is the exception, not the rule. Among these migrants worldwide, around 36 million are children and young people. Behind this number there are not only statistics but also individual lives, hopes, and a huge potential that can shape our societies. But enough with global numbers. What does life actually look like for these people? To understand this, let's take a short journey around the world and see how different countries deal with the challenges and opportunities of migration. Our first stop is South Korea, a country that for a long time was seen as very homogeneous. Research there shows that young migrants mainly face three types of barriers. First, there is direct violence, such as bullying. Second, there is structural violence, which is built into systems, for example when the school system makes it harder for children without Korean parents to succeed. And third, there is cultural violence, meaning deep-rooted prejudices that people often do not even notice anymore because they seem normal. From these rather invisible barriers in South Korea, we now move to a place where tensions are very visible: the border between the United States and Mexico. Researchers there describe a phenomenon called the talk. It is basically a survival lesson that parents give to their children. They teach them how to behave during police checks, what to say, how to look, how to move. It is a protection strategy for living in an environment where people constantly feel under suspicion. And what this experience does to young people is expressed very clearly in this quote. It shows how fear and trauma can be passed from one generation to the next. But migration is not always about social pressure or border controls. Often people are forced to move because of existential crises. We can see this in our next two examples from very different regions of the world. In Pakistan, climate change forces people to move within their own country. In the former Yugoslavia, people fled because of war. The reasons are different, but these stories share something important: the remarkable resilience of people. Psychologists use this term to describe the ability to adapt to completely new and often very difficult circumstances. These stories also show how important strong social networks are. So far we have seen many difficult aspects. But the last point, the importance of support, also shows a possible path forward. It moves the discussion from the problem to possible solutions. The key question is, how can integration succeed? The good news is that global research provides surprisingly clear answers. One important finding is that successful integration is not random. It is not magic. It usually depends on four main pillars. First, stable support systems, such as those created deliberately in Canada. Second, good access to education, which helps people develop their potential. Third, an active civil society, associations and initiatives that build bridges. And fourth, something very important, recognizing the strength and resilience that young people themselves bring with them. After this global journey, what does all of this mean for us here in Germany? In public debates we often hear the feeling that we are reaching our limits, that the situation is too much and that Germany is a special case. But when we look at the world, reality looks different. Migration and the questions connected to it are a global normal situation. Many countries with far fewer resources than Germany face very similar challenges. The lessons are quite clear. Diversity is not a German exception, it is normal in many societies. The key factor for success or failure is the existence of reliable structures. Young people are not passive victims, they are active contributors with enormous potential. And perhaps the most important insight is this: societies can grow through these challenges and may even become stronger. This leads us to the central message: we are not alone with these questions. Migration is part of a shared human experience that connects people across cultures and continents. Looking at the world shows us that successful integration is not a matter of fate. It is a task that societies can shape. The question is not whether we can manage it, but how we actively and constructively shape our shared future. Today we discussed a work by Loretta Bass from 2025. Do you have any questions or topics you'd like to see covered? Feel free to email me at youtube@empowermigra.com. EmpowerMigra, understanding begins with listening.